Alright, we're back at the install of the S&B Cold Air Intake on a 2018 Ford F250 Super Duty. Some simple tools that you're going to need: 3/8 drive ratchets, varying extensions, 13 and 10 millimeter sockets. I also like using the 1/4 inch stuff, that way you don't over torque things. Phillips screwdriver, the little popper for the wiring loom retainers and pins, T20 Torx, a 5/16 or 7 millimeter socket for the band clamps, a heat gun which I've got to locate. It's out here in the shop somewhere. My shop is an absolute mess right now. I got too many projects going on, but your ever-present standard little heat gun for melting the heat shrink is what you're going to need. We've got the box all assembled. Everything's ready to go from the last video. The truck itself, like I said, is a 2018 Ford F250 Super Duty. And what we are going to do with the S&B kit, we remove the stock battery location, stock air box, and they swap positions. From the factory, the air has to come in through this, down under the battery, back up into the air box, through a restricted filter, through a tube that's bent, goes crooked, and then flattens out to the actual intake portion of the intake. That makes that air go all kinds of different ways, and the more turns that you make it make, the more restriction there is. It heats up. It's just not good. This way, when this is done, the air is going to come in here, the filter will be right here, and the pipe goes straight over and in. So we've eliminated all of these ups and downs and twists and turns and restriction points. It reuses the stock mass airflow sensor, the stock mounting hardware, adds a bracket. It's a very clean install, very simple. It just takes a little bit of time. Slow down, take your time, do it right, and it will come out great. So let's get started here. We're going to get you set up here where you can actually see what I'm doing. So bear with me a second as we get the fancy little camera mount here and get the camera set up so that you can see what I do. Again, this is a very simple setup. Anybody can do it. Some basic hand tools. We just want to take our time, do it safely, watch your fingers and toes, and enjoy yourself. Have fun. That's what the whole thing about doing mods to your vehicles is. Having a little bit of fun with it and seeing what you can do and what you can make better. Alright, one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to come right here and we're going to take our little pin popper, pull that pin up, get underneath it, very carefully wiggle and pry, and it comes out. And what this is it has a little pin that goes in and spreads that out, creating a swelling that keeps it from pulling back out. So all you want to do is just pull it to about that point and it's ready to reinsert. So you're going to set that to the side because you will be reusing that. And then you can do this several different ways. There's two little tabs down here. If you reach in, you pull on them, you can pull this guy right out. And you can see what I mean. The air has to come in here, turn 90 degrees, come down here, turn 90 degrees. And look how much smaller this is. So it really restricts the airflow, because 90, and then underneath, and then back up, over, down, and around. It just really restricts the airflow. We won't be reusing that. Now let's get this guy here out of our way. And of course, that one doesn't fit that, so again, this is why I like to have my 1/4 inch drive stuff out. We're just going to loosen this band clamp up. And for any of y'all that haven't ever seen one of these before, they've been out a long time. The head on the ratchet actually floats and allows you to come up and create a quick spin tool. A friend of mine hates them. I love them. You know, it's a matter of personal taste. Pump that hose out of that clamp, and we loosen the main one at the intake. You can't really see that, but it's right here. We'll loosen that clamp up there, and once we've got that one loose, we should be able to give a little bit more pull here and a pull here, and we've got that guy completely off. Now, as you can see, we got a pretty open space here now. We can take a look at things, see what's going on. Intake looks good and clean. You can actually see the turbo back up inside there. Let me get a flashlight to show you. I don't know if y'all can see that back up in there, but there's the actual turbo back inside there, so you can kind of see what I mean about wanting as straight a shot as possible. Makes it a much more efficient system. This camera set back up again. Now, back to our install. One of the first things we want to do here, and anytime that you're working on your vehicle, where you might hit something in the wiring harness, is to disconnect the negative cables on both batteries. Remember, diesels have 2 batteries, so always make sure that you do them both so that we don't have any unauthorized arc welding. And let's see, this engine actually has just the single alternator. If you have a dual alternator, sometimes it'll be up over here, and that makes for longer belts, more things to replace. This one is a single alternator diesel, and we only have the one ground cable. We don't have the secondary, so that makes our installation just a tad bit easier. Some people move this out as one unit. I like to get everything out of the way I can. We have this little clip here. We're simply going to reach in here and pry that little red clamp back like that. You'll hear it click, and then there's a tab. You push in on that, and then that thing pops right off. And then this is the factory mass air sensor that we're going to take out and install in our tube for the cold air intake kit. You want to make sure that you set that aside where it doesn't get hit. As we can see, this filter here was way past due, needing replacing. And then we're left with the stock air box and battery box. Now, you're going to remove the battery box. It's 10mm nuts. Whatever you do, don't drop your nuts. It's uncomfortable and hard to find sometimes. That's a funny. But you get those off, set those to the side, because you will reuse those. And you can see how tipping this up and using it as a spin wrench makes things so much easier to use. And you see, if you drop that nut there, it's gone into infinity. to a land that no one will ever see it again. And we remove this. This is a good time to check for corrosion, clean it up, paint it, use baking soda to neutralize any acid. But this is the time to take a look at this. Now, here's something to think about. We live in South Florida. It is hotter than the bejeebers down here. They build these vehicles for multiple climates. Unfortunately, what works well in New England doesn't necessarily work so great down here in Florida. And what I'm referring to is the battery blanket. This is this big blanket right here that wraps around your battery. Up north, that is a necessary evil. It helps maintain the temperature of the battery, gives it longer life in the severe cold. In Florida, we have just the opposite problem. That blanket holds heat in and just cooks the batteries down here. So depending on where you live and what your comfort level is, I suggest removing it if you're in a hot climate. South Texas, South California, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, where we don't really get freezing temperatures, I suggest removing that blanket. But that's a choice that you have to make. It's what you're comfortable with. Me personally, I remove them because down here it just helps cook the batteries. And the battery lifespans down here aren't long to begin with. Now, there are a lot of different battery pullers out there on the market. This is just one that I've had for years and years. Does well for me. Allows you to just come out, pick that guy right up. And again, here's that blanket. You do what you want. I remove them. Now, stock battery box, stock air box. Let's finish getting these out of here. Again, 13mm socket. Remove these 4 bolts. It just takes a couple of seconds. Now, more than a couple of seconds, but we're going to set those 2 to the side because we will be reusing those. And the next 2. Remember, don't let these things spook you. Just watch what you're doing. Most of the time, it's just a matter of reassembling in the reverse order that you took it apart. There's nothing super secret or magical about this. It's just a process of remembering what you've done. And today's age, with the cell phones, with the cameras, take pictures. That way you know you're going to get it back correct. Now we got that. Now we got 2 8mm right there. Got to get an extension. You'll have to excuse me, my parts bench is back inside the shop and we're outside. And we just simply take these two guys out of here. That. Got that guy free. Now, we do have wire fitting right there that we have to pull off. And there goes the airbox. And take a look at things, see where everything's run through here, how it's held on, make sure nothing's going to be in the way. This little bracket here is going to come off. We have another wire there. And another clip there, and with that, battery tray should be ready to come out there. And of course, we have a wire holder here. Another one right next to it. So we got two in the front there. And then there's the battery box. Now we will be taking this apart and we got to get the U-bolt out of that. Now what we're left with is a nice cavern here. Now there's a wire retainer here and here that we are supposed to loosen up. Oh, that one wasn't even hooked up. Okay, and then the AC compressor line, we're going to very gently bring that back even with that. Give us some room. And then this, let's twist it around. There's a wire there that we're going to push down underneath. I think what I'm going to do with mine is run it under the AC line and under all these brackets and back up again. There we go. I like that. That's tucked underneath, doesn't rub on anything. Now let's relocate this guy. Remember, take your time, do it right the first time. Look at things, see how they're routed. You know, maybe you can find a better way to put something together so that you don't have pinch points or things rubbing on things. And here we want to take 10mm and we want to take that thing all the way off. Going to do, set that down, bottom block, the bolt, this piece here should push out, and then what we're going to do is we're going to reverse it around. So it goes like just like that, and then they're saying that you've got to reverse it around to go like this. This comes down on here and pushes over. This bolt comes up from inside here. But you know what? I'm going to put this so it's like that. I like that better. Bolt goes on. Big wedge goes in here, little wedge goes there, and then the nut goes on, and then that allows you to clamp that on. We'll set that to the side. Now it's time for the new bracket. Okay, the new bracket slides in. Okay, we are going to have to fully remove there's a clip there. And you do have to fully remove it. It's one of the AC lines. That's fully removed. You line those holes up. They supply you with a bolt, 2 washers, and a nut. It's a lock nut. So be very careful putting this up underneath here that you don't drop that said lock nut, because then you get to play find a bolt. That's always a fun game. 1/2-inch socket and 1/2-inch wrench, and it is stainless steel hardware, so you shouldn't have any corrosion issues. Now, what you want to do is just snug that. You don't want to tighten it. You still want some wiggle room here, because we're going to put the new battery tray in first and get the bolts loosely put in so we can get everything lined up. This bracket right here we need to remove. And another point, when you're working on stuff, make sure you're wearing soft clothing that doesn't have metal pieces in it, no belt buckles, pins, exposed snaps. Because as you're leaning on your vehicle or your customer's vehicle, those will scratch up the paint job. So just get in the habit of not wearing that stuff in the first place. Even if you're using the fender cover, it's a good idea not to use it because sometimes they will press through the fender cover and still scratch the paint. Now that we have those removed, we'll set them to the side. Those bolts aren't reused. Now, one of the things we have to do is we have to take the stock battery box apart and get out that U-bolt. We're going to need one of these wire ties, and we're going to need a pair of cutters. And that should be it for the moment. Now what happens here on the back side of this, we have two 8mm bolts right there. And what I'm going to do is pull those off so that I can figure out where the socket is. And these are not reused. See if I can get you where you can see this. We're going to take these two guys off right here. I'm trying to do this and balance the camera at the same time. Sometimes that gets to be a little bit interesting. But you can see these two little guys just screw into these little clamps. And I just want to get them out. And we will not be reusing those.